Hello and welcome to Starburst Magazine here on the YouTube. I'm Andrew Pollard and today I'm joined by Jill Gevargizian of The Stylist to talk about all things The Stylist. Before we get to that, I guess the first obvious question, Jill, 2020, strange old year. How are you doing right now in these crazy times?
Well, it's every time I answer that question, it feels weird because it's going really well right now considering the state of the world. But I think that's in large part because we've had the film to kind of escape into this whole time. We've been in post-production since the quarantine started. And so it gave, I think, all of us that are involved in the post, like something to focus on, something that we were like accountable to. It wasn't just like something we could do if we felt like it. Like we had all these people and all these deadlines waiting on us. So it was like, since it was something that we absolutely had to do and there were all these deadlines, it kept us focused. And I think it's harder if we were like in the middle of just writing something, I would not be nowhere near as productive. This is something that we absolutely had to do. And it was like a godsend in the end. It's all kind of like, it's like a metaphor for Claire's whole thing is she's trying to escape. And that's what the film became for like all of us. And then since its release, it's just been so exciting. So I just been focusing on that and trying to somewhat ignore the horrible things happening in the world. Not entirely, but yeah.
No, as someone who's seen the movie, I absolutely loved it. It was kind of everything I'd hoped for and then a little bit more. And I think that seems to have been, I mean, obviously, yourself, you're in horror circles. We as a magazine cover lots of horror things, so we see lots of reactions from people who love this sort of stuff. But the reaction, nonetheless, seems to have been ridiculously positive across the board from everyone that's seen the movie, whether it's the Kickstarter backers, whether it's the festivals, as and when it premieres at these festivals and new people get to see it. How's that been to see this reaction? Because like, there's a whole lot of love for this movie.
It's been crazy and kind of surreal. In fact, this past weekend, Fright Fest, it might have been, I think that was the biggest, most intense reaction we've had. And I think that's thanks, like the horror fans there in UK are intense. And I've been to Fright Fest twice. We, in fact, launched the Kickstarter for The Stylist at Fright Fest last August. And it just feels like family there. And they really made us feel that way with the freaking Twitter reactions. And Najara won Best Actress from Total Films Awards, so that was crazy exciting. It's just I don't want to talk about the sad stuff, but I would have loved to be there and hear. There's nothing like being in the theater and actually hearing the reaction in real time. And like as a filmmaker, did that moment work? Did it not work? That stuff you don't really know unless you're in the room with people watching. But we're so appreciative and like beyond flattered by all these comments, and we're in all these people's top fives of the festival.
Yeah.
I wish I could have watched all the festival. We couldn't access it here at all.
I did see that Najara had won the Total Film Award, which was awesome. Even though Total Film are a rival publication, but still, props where props due. That's a hell of an award to win.
Start any fights.
But like it's festivals are loving it. The people arranging festivals are loving it. The people going to festivals, the Kickstarter backers, the critics, everybody so far has been enjoying this movie a hell of a lot. But like, how was it once it kind of your baby first went out into the wild? How nervous or excited were you at that point when the film was first about to go out there?
It's definitely nerve-wracking. It's like equally exciting and horrifying. Because it actually started to dawn on me that it was going to happen not till like in August, when I started to think like the end of the end is coming and people are going to see this movie. I never really imagined getting to that point. I think we've been trying to make the movie for so long that just seemed like so far out of the possibilities. And then once it started to get real close, I was like, oh my God, people are going to see this movie. That's terrifying. Are they going to like it? And then my whole career is at stake, maybe, depending on how it goes. Again, it was, though, unfortunately, there's this weird disconnection because I didn't get to, like, be at the world premiere. We tried to organize something so we could, feel that a little bit. My co-writer, Eric Havens, and I, he had access to a huge auditorium that fit like 300 people. We invited like 30 people to watch it spread out so we could at least be together with a little group. So that was special. But yeah, what's also interesting is we're still technically finishing the movie while it was playing at Fantastic Fest, the world premiere. So I'm like, that's not even the totally finished movie. It's never finished, I guess, till you're like pass it off to a distributor. But it's interesting because now I'm learning that game with short films. I make sure they're totally done before I even start submitting them. We were like submitting the film when it was in a very rough shape way back in June to festivals.
Yeah, and I guess that obviously that's one thing you lose out on is the fact that you can't be there with the people who are watching it in an arena, in a theatre, in a cinema screening room. But I guess the silver lining is, because everything's virtual now, people who may not have gone to these events can stream in. So I guess that's one positive on that maybe, I don't know if that balances out or maybe more people can get to see it. So that's one positive. Yeah,
there's tons of silver lining and positivity about it. Cause like you said, with Fantastic Fest being virtual, for instance, anyone in the whole United States could access it versus just everyone who's in Austin. And I think that was cool because it was free, but there were like 500 tickets available and it was sold out a few days beforehand. So that was crazy exciting. I don't know if that would have happened in person or what, or if you wouldn't have 500 people in a theater there. They don't have that big of theaters. So that was, I think, great. And then also Fright Fest being virtual for anyone in the UK to watch. I do think it gets out further. And then we're really lucky that, I don't know if we're lucky, but it's great that all this happened while we have the internet and social media, and so we can still all stay really connected. I mean, like, I'm so thankful to do something as silly as Twitter, because that's where I can really see reactions in real time. And like, I even like any bad reaction I find. Like, I hope they come to my page and see what I've seen. No, I'm not really like that.
But last time we talked, it feels like absolutely forever ago. I think it was only like February, maybe March, but like because of how 2020's gone, that might as well have been 6 years ago. Cause it's just like the time is everywhere. But at that point, you were launching. Well, you're in the middle of the Kickstarter campaign, which
it was actually over a year ago, Andrew. It was August of 2019.
Oh my word! For some reason, I had it as February, which is why I thought like, no, it's way long ago than that. Holy moly!
What's crazy is this year has felt like, even though we've been all like kind of locked down, it's like flying by. I don't understand.
Yeah, I think all the days just merge into one, really.
Yeah, but we spoke right before, I believe, Fright Fest their traditional.
Oh, it was
August,
because that's when you were about, like you said, that's when you launched the Kickstarter, and we spoke just before that. And then the interview went live around about the time of. Oh my word, this is crazy.
Over a year has already passed.
Sugar, man. But the whole point was you managed to basically Kickstarter got kicked out of the park with what, over $60,000 I think you guys got there from backers, which is nuts. How was that then? Because I know you seem to be a little bit like, oh, will we make the money or not that we need to get this, which I always felt confident that you would, but I guess if I was in your shoes as the filmmaker, there's always that, oh, what if? So how was that when it finally crossed the line? It's like, right, let's go.
Well, I think until you get to that line, you're worried. A Kickstarter is like, I've done too many Kickstarters and they're the most nerve-wracking. Every day you're checking it like, it's gone up $5. We're almost there. I was so scared for this one because we're asking for a significant amount of money. The last one I had ran was for the short of the Stylist, where I think only tried to raise like $5,000, and not that that's a small amount of money, but that was hard to raise. So I'm like talking to my team, like, are we crazy to think we can raise, like 40, 50 grand? It was hard to raise $5,000. Anything is hard. And I can't imagine now trying to raise money for anything, but I did a lot of research into the Kickstarter and the theory behind running these freaking campaigns and all this. There's so much out there that you can learn. Like, most of the money comes in at the start and the first couple of days and the last couple of days. And the middle is horrifying, and you think like you're never going to make it in the middle. A lot of people, I think, like to wait to the end to see, like, they want to be part of that last moment, or they want to see how close it gets. I don't know, there's something like the psychology behind waiting to the last, because we were only like 3 or 4 days before the deadline and still had, I think, like over $10,000.
Oh, wow.
We're in trouble. And then it just started like ding, ding, ding. Like I was getting notifications on my phone, and it was just like, people really do wait to the end. Holy shit.
I never even thought of that. I just thought, like, you see a project online thinking, oh, that's cool, I'll back that. I didn't ever think, like, maybe I should wait till the end.
It's something about the urgency. Like, I've read about the psychology behind why Kickstarter works versus like Indiegogo and all the other ones that don't require you to meet a goal. They say, like, you'll never meet those goals because it is about that pressure. Like, that affects people. They want to help. They know, like, they're not going to get this if you don't get all of it. And there's like statistics of you only make like maybe 60% of what you ask for on Indie because you don't have to make it. There's just no urgency. So I think that's what it's about. Those last few days, people are like, oh, we got to do it. There's only a couple days left. And they say, like, don't ever, now this is a Kickstarter lesson, like, don't do your Kickstarters longer than like 3 to 4 weeks, even though you think like, I need more money, the longer the better. The longer it goes, the more people will be like, oh, they still got 6 weeks to raise money. Like, and then they forget about it and never actually donate. I like I said, I did Kickstarters for the short, but I didn't even do half of the amount of research I did for this one. And I even made spreadsheets of like successful campaigns around the same budget and like all of their rewards, which rewards were the most popular, and it's insane. Because you can spend a fortune on rewards if you're not careful.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, you need to set aside $20,000 just to fulfill all these crazy rewards you've promised people. Like, some people at like only $20, $30 will be offering like a shirt, a poster, a DVD, like a whole pack of stuff. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's like, that's going to cost like $60 just to put together.
To make. Exactly.
How for yourself then? Like I said, this has been a really, really positive response to the movie, like across the board. But is it, I don't know, in terms of your personality, do you find yourself getting really excited and like, oh my God, this is amazing? Or do you try and just keep it cool and calm and like, this is really good for now, let's see how we go?
No, I am like the kind of person that's like, we got to enjoy every moment we can to the fullest. Because like, what's the point of all of this?
Yeah,
I understand keeping expectations at a certain point, but to me, it's like you can celebrate each positive thing that as for what it is. It doesn't mean like this must mean Netflix is going to offer us $5 billion for the movie. But I think it's important to celebrate every little thing, because what the hell are we doing all of this for? Yeah.
How was it on the set then? Was it like when things finally wrapped, was there a big celebration there? Is it like, oh my God, we've done this. Let's crack out the bourbon or something and let's have a big party? Yeah.
We were the craziest group of people in the world. And I've only worked on one feature before making this one as an assistant director. So I don't have tons of experience being on shoots for that long. All my shorts are like a couple days, and you bond, but it's not nearly the same because it's so short. But I heard this from so many people on our crew that have been on tons of movies. They all said how like they've never seen a crew bond the way we did and as fast as we did. We actually had like a rap parties technically at the end of the shoot. We had multiple rap parties is what we were calling it. We'd be like, it's a day 4 rap parties, day 9 rap party. It really is. We had this party on day 4 that is like infamous in the whole crew's mind, where like half the crew's from Kansas City, half the crew was from Chicago. There were lots of people that had never met each other, and after 4 days we were all like the best of friends, like family level, and we'd be singing and dancing and drinking till like the sun came up every chance we had. Because you think like we had a crazy schedule. We only have like 1 day off every 3 to 5 days. And on those, like when we'd have a day off, we'd all be like, well, that means we're all staying together and partying till the next day. We like didn't spend any time apart. It was the most special experience. Like I say like we all fell in love with each other. It was like that intense. And so when it was over, the last day was really sad. We did have a huge party that night. In fact, we had an official wrap party planned for the day after our last day. But of course, like we wrap at like 3 a.m. one night, and we're like, we start partying right then. So by the time we all get to the real wrap party the next day, we're all just like so tired. Nobody's party. We're all going to home early tonight. So the real wrap party was kind of mellow considering.
Mm-hmm.
But we were ridiculous, like dancing and singing and drinking every chance we got.
Yeah. That sounds like a really good time. Let's make a really good movie and let's enjoy it and celebrate each other and the film, and then just have like one day off.
All helped the film in the end. Like you can feel the love that everyone had like for the project and each other, and it was awesome.
Well, you mentioned Eric before, Eric Havens, who you co-wrote this with and worked on the short with as well. How was it how challenging was it to adapt what was a 15-minute short story and then expand that to a 90-minute movie or however long it is? How was that? I don't know, did that just feel natural because you already had this story mapped out, or was it a little bit more challenging than you thought to expand this world?
It was challenging because at first, honestly, I always wanted to be a feature, and maybe we should have started with writing the feature. But we did the short first, and Eric and I sat down like right after we shot the short in like 2015, I don't even know how many years ago, and started to outline it. And I remember I was like gung-ho about starting to outline it right away, and then started working on post-production on the short and didn't think about it for another freaking 6 months or longer. And the short started to play places, and people assumed it was like something we were making a feature out of. I didn't even say it. I was like, oh my God, I had this intuition we should have had the script ready then. Well, we weren't even close. And so at one point, I believe it was the summer that the short was premiering everywhere, 2016, the ending came to my mind of the feature. And I was like, that's the ending. Now I know how we get to this point. I always wanted it to be still about, the short film to me was like the end of her downward spiral. Like if the short were to continue, she's probably going to get arrested soon because she just killed a woman who was on her way to a party and in the salon, and it was all very messy. But obviously she had gotten away with this in the past. So with the feature, it was like we want to show a more in-depth version of from the normal to complete downward spiral. So what I mostly struggled with was knowing that like film, like fans wanted to know like why she's doing this, where did she come from, her history. I was like, I don't really want to like go back and tell her like childhood to now. I wanted to say like now to like the end. And so instead I was trying to find ways to like hint at her life naturally without like the obvious flashback, which we were really looking to like Maniac and May, like the structure of those films, because they're similar. Like we're trying to look for films that had similar structures. And we're like, well, they both do that. They both flash back to their childhood to kind of give you reason. And I didn't want to. And for a long time, I didn't know if there was a way around it. So we had that at one version of the script. And a lot of people read it and said they didn't like that part of it. They're like, it feels disconnected from the story. And I'm like, that's fair, because it's something we like try to jam into it because it felt like it wasn't enough. And so it really actually even started as less of a horror film too, is even more of a just psychodrama with even less kills than there are now. And after a while, it was a lot of investors had read it and said that the storyline didn't feel connected, the flashbacks. And so I was already working with Eric Stolz to be very confusing, another Eric.
All the Erics, Eric and Eric.
Yeah, working with Eric Stolz on another script that Bria Grant was attached to star in that we have not made. Eric also wrote Late Phases. Shout out to his work. He's awesome. But I loved Eric's work so much. I asked him if he would be interested in helping with the Stylist script. I was like, this needs a lot of work. Like the structure, we know we don't want to change the beginning, end, and middle, but like we need help filling this in and bringing the themes out more. And like he added 2 brutal kills to it, added so much meaning to like, and rearranged major stuff. He spent like 3 weeks on the fucking script and made it like 1,000 times better. I'm like, what? He's just like a natural talent like that. Like it takes me like years to get a script out, or like even just an outline out of my head. I don't consider myself much of a writer for that reason. And I'm like, ask him to do like a revision in 3 weeks. And it's not like a minor revision, it was major. Because there's probably like a 50-page script when we took all these flashbacks out. And understandably, a lot of investors are like, we want more horror, we want more blood. I'm like, well, I'm not trying to make a slasher. So I was really also battling with that. I'm like, still needs to feel like this, like more like a thriller, and she's not going to go kill 20 people. And that's when you kind of take it to a ridiculous tone, because it's like, that's totally not believable in any way. Maybe not that what she does is either, but I was like, I don't want it to be just a straight, I didn't want it to be like Maniac with that many kills. And so there was a lot, like there's like 3 years of writing the script.
Well, that was like one of the things I was going to ask you about, which you've kind of touched on there already, about how what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah. How tempting was it to maybe go into the backstory route, or how hard was it to not go into that route? Because it is, I think the movie, if you saw exactly what makes Claire tick, then it kind of loses. So we don't need to know that, especially right now. Maybe down the line, I guess. But I think that was really good, because I guess like the Rob Zombie's Halloween, where you get to see every little intricacy of what made Michael Myers, and that movie has its charms, but I don't need to know really about what made Michael tick. And I guess the same with Claire right now. So how hard was that not to just kind of give in and, okay, investors want that backstory, let's just go with it?
Well, what's weird is the investors did not want it.
Oh, they did not, right?
They felt disconnected, but I was just so worried, and there's still plenty of this reaction. Like that's probably the main critique we're getting, is that we don't explain why she does this like flat out. But I wanted we wanted to leave room for people to like be able to interpret what they think or what it means to them. I like films that you can walk away thinking about them, versus like they just tell you this is what it is and there's nothing left to think about. Then like you said, it's not really my intention, but that leaves it open for a ridiculous franchise. We could do a prequel in 10 years.
Oh my God, yeah, Claire, the beginning sort of thing. one of those. You did last time we spoke. It was like in jest. You said that you have plans for like loose plans ahead of time, and there's like the Stylist 10 where Claire's in space with Jason. Because I just remember that quote standing out from our last chat. I mean, have you got something maybe mapped out for at least another movie, or is it just work on other things now and maybe come back to this, or is I guess Claire's always there with you?
That's what's weird is I never planned to make a sequel. I wanted it to be its own thing. But then I kind of feel like sequels are brought on because people love it so much. Like that's a good, if like then you eventually make one because people want to see something more again. Like 20 years from now, there were horrible like prequels and stuff. Like that's a compliment. That means the original's like that powerful. But it was not my intention. But then like my friend Elric Kane from, I don't know what his new the old podcast is gone, Shockwave's X podcast. He was telling me, well, no, this is spoilery, but like if we open the film kind of exactly where it ended, a sequel would be pretty badass because Claire's like looks awesome and is in an awesome outfit. It's like you can't go wrong with that, with a movie opening with a woman like in that outfit. But I have like tons of very ridiculous ideas for a sequel that are like I haven't actually written or have any real interest in figuring out. But through making the feature, we also jokingly created lots of spin-offs that are like a universe for the stylist.
Okay, the stylish universe. That's it. We heard it here first.
There's the movie. There's a wedding in the movie, and there's a flower girl in the wedding who I love, this actress, and I've joked like they were gonna make the flower girl and she's gonna be like a psycho killer kid.
Everyone gets on board with that. That sounds like an easy sell.
But then I've also said I'll just, since I'm such a Tobe Hooper fanatic, maybe I could 10 years from now make a sequel to it that's just like over the top, very funny, straight slasher, because he knew like he couldn't do the same thing again, which I think is so smart. And it was probably fun to like take his own creation and then just make like a very funny version of it. Because that's kind of where the idea for Stylist came. I was like, how does there not already just like a straightforward slasher with a hairstylist? There's like endless ways to kill people in a salon. Okay, I'm gonna scare people, but there's so many ridiculous weapon-like things. You could just go like really over the top with something like that. So that could still happen.
Yeah, that's nice and eerie to know. There's lots of ways to kill someone in a salon. It's like I'm a dude that I'm maybe get my hair
your haircut. I'm available.
I had it cut about a month ago, but I'm like one of those where I get it cut about twice a year. Let it grow really long, get it cut short and grow really long. But I'll just remember to go at like good times in the day where there's lots of people around, and so nothing dodgy can happen. But yeah, it surprised me that there's nothing like this has been done before, because especially when, I guess, the 80s, when like slasher really amped it up and any sort of profession was like the dentist or something was that there was that. I think that got like 3 movies.
There's the Landlady, which is like a super small, silly movie. Like Dr. Giggles, which I love Dr. Giggles. You think that time period would have had a hairstylist slasher? Yeah. That would be more like sleazy, like maybe she's like super sexy and killed, like, you know what I mean, that vibe, that like early 90s stalker slasher vibe.
Yeah, I'm surprised, but I'm also thankful that didn't happen, because we might not have got this movie. And it's like far removed from that sleazy 90s slasher, late 80s, early 90s slasher, because it is, without like being a pun, it's a ridiculously stylish movie. Just the colors, everything about it, the lighting, it's like just like tick, 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 tick. And that was the same with the short, and it was, because we screened the short at the first Starburst International Film Festival we did, and had a bomb alert, and we had a evacuation midway through it. But it was on the final night, and that was the final short we were showing, and we got evacuated because of a bomb scare, which wasn't a bomb scare, thankfully. But we got back and we started it again, and everybody loved it. But the big thing was how cinematic it looked for a short movie, and that's something that you've carried on like tenfold in this. It's like, where does the inspiration for this eye come from? Or is it yourself, the cast, or the crew that are there? It's just, it looks absolutely flawless, the movie. I mean, the narrative's great, but whether it was if the story wasn't even great, it still looked amazing. But you have like the story and the look nailed.
Thank you. It's funny, the team, most of the team that worked on the short is on the feature as well. And especially Robert Stern, our director of photography, and Sarah Sharp, our production designer, us three, we saw the short while we were filming the feature, and we're like, it's kind of painful to watch it now because we feel like we've grown a lot since then. It looks really good, but it is kind of cringy for us now to watch because I feel like we finally got to make the feature and it looks so much better. We were like in hindsight, the silver lining about having all this time, like the film not getting financed sooner, all three of us have been thinking about the film for this, since we shot the short film in 2015. So we've been like, everyone's been marinating on all of this for this long, like Najara, Robert, and Sarah. Like Robert's been collecting vintage lights for the last few years that we used in her lair, like Claire's basement, which we call Claire's lair.
Nice.
She has a vanity down there, and behind the vanity there we had this like altar of sorts with all these like old gold lights on it, and those are like lights Robert's been collecting that are legit vintage lights for years. And it's a lot of similar influence that the short had, but Rob and Sarah know I wanted a very elegant, hyper stylish movie with like crazy attention to detail. And we're lucky to have all that time to think about it. Like we were working on it hardcore from like August of last year, and we started shooting in January. So we had like 5 months of like legit preparation, but have been thinking about it for years before that. And like we were blocking through scenes 3 months before in locations, Robert and I walking through them, and like just everything. That's also the kind of filmmaker I want to be. All the filmmakers I kind of look up to are like meticulously detailed, like David Fincher or Alfred Hitchcock. They believe like you plan everything to a T ahead of time. And then I also believe that's what gives you the option to try new things on the day, because you already know like we have a solid plan that's going to work. Now we can also try this, versus like, let's just get there and see what happens. Like that is not me at all. But I've studied a lot of David Fincher's stuff where they say, like everything in every frame like has a purpose. There's not like nothing's like an accident. Like the camera doesn't move for any reason that's not like has intention and meaning behind it. And that was what's important to me. Even on sets, I'll be like, there'll be moments where Rob and I are maybe differing on like the camera moving or not. I'm like, there's no reason for the camera to move here. Why is it moving? Give me the reason. Are we following someone, or are we doing it like, we just need a reason that we believe. And I think that's the difference in really any good filmmaking. I feel like you can sense that amount of intention behind everything.
Yeah.
And we just got crazy. But I've never worked with this big of a team, not even close. I'm used to doing like my own wardrobe, for instance, on a short film. And on this, that was no way a possibility. I sat down with our costume designer, Holly Sharp, and the first meeting we had together, she like tells me, Claire has like 25 looks in this movie alone. I'm like, what? Holy shit, it's lots of, like one person's just figuring out, that's just one character, all those different outfits to figure out, and then all the other characters and then all the extras and make sure they don't look crazy. And it was a huge team, and everyone like nailed what I dreamed of. I put together this lookbook at a time, like how I wanted Claire to dress. I didn't think we had the budget to make that even possible, but somehow we did. It's just that taking the time to be detailed, which are like all my favorite filmmakers. But we got deep into filmmakers like Brian De Palma, and I just started researching psycho thrillers with similar themes, like about obsession, perfection, wanting to be someone else, the like doppelganger idea, and pulled up all these films, and we just like, that became our Bible. It's like Neon Demon, Black Swan, Carrie, May, and like Sisters, Three Women, and we kept going back. Persona, which I learned about a lot of these films, starting to read about films with the same theme. And it's like, for everything, I sent that to everyone. I'm like, we're going to use these movies for like inspiration for the look, the music, the everything.
Like
I
it's
just
like
the biggest rant ever there.
no, it's good. So that's like a load of homework. That's a good sort of homework here. Watch these movies,
Yeah.
pay attention to this. Najara Townsend as Claire. I mean, she was great in the short, but just like wow, because obviously with this being a more fleshed out version of Claire, you get to see a lot more of the, I guess, just like the innocence and the vulnerability to her. And then she goes and scalps somebody, and that's not quite as innocent and vulnerable. So it's but
She's
you
so innocent, always.
it is, but you like that's the thing. Like she does these horrible things, because of I guess obviously the way that the events are shot and the way that they're written, but also Najara's performance. Like you still feel you just want to kind of give Claire a hug and like it's okay, it's cool, it's even though you've done that, we'll hide that body. I'll help you. It's all right. Like just how great is Najara to work with? Obviously, she won the Total Film Fright Fest Award you talked about, and I'm sure she'll get a lot more awards coming her way. But yeah, this is big up how awesome she is.
She is. I don't even know still how we got lucky enough to ever know her and have her in this film, because I don't know how. I mean, there's a lot of talented actors, but it's such a specific kind of character that is so introverted, and it was really important for me that she feel real and like grounded in a sense, and like emotionally grounded, because as like she's doing such outlandish things that like even the craziest serial killer isn't that meticulous and dramatic with their routine. So I really battled writing actually. It's like I want her to be very real feeling, but she's doing things that are very over the top. Like how do we balance that? And I think that's her performance, and we've gotten the compliment that, man, if someone else played her, it might feel campy or silly. And so much of that character is quiet. Like there's countless scenes that are just Claire by herself, and what Najara can do just like with the smallest like facial expressions, and it's just so small but so powerful. Like I just watch scenes and I'm just like, I can't believe how good she is. Like conversations between her and the other main character, Olivia, which is Bria. There's like a scene in this club where just even when they know like when to be quiet, and I'm most impressed with acting that's like without dialogue, because that takes so much. Like those people she's fully immersed in it, and it's just so subtle. It's so perfect. I don't know how we got so lucky to have her. Like she's a dream. But this is a very hard like role, and there'd be days where, I mean, we were trying to schedule it because of how emotionally involved her scenes are. Like you can't expect her to do something horrifically emotional and then jump right back over this and then go back to that. Like that is like, we are all physically moving around. The crew thinks like we're so exhausted. I don't think we have any idea how exhausting that is on an emotional level to play, because we are shooting like scenes from all over the movie every day. It's not in order at all. And there were challenging days where I could tell she was challenged, and her performance was always perfect. But it's like, this is a heavy role. She's in pretty much every shot of the movie. There's only like a couple scenes where it's just Bria. But it was intense, and I feel like I could never, like I owe her my life, because she's like made this film like what it could be. And she's incredible. She's also just like so brave and stoked like to do anything. We had this part in the movie where it might have involved a stunt, like her jumping out of a window. And she's like, I want to do it. Well, I'm doing it. Everyone else is like, you're not jumping out the window. Her husband was my assistant director, and he's like, this is funny. He's like, she can do it on the last day. Which is how you normally schedule that kind of stuff in case people get hurt. But I'm like, oh, so you're planning on her getting hurt.
It's fine. It's wrapped in.
But we did not jump out the window, unfortunately. But she's like so stoked to, and there were like there's a super vulnerable scene in this movie that I was even like, if I get so sensitive about what I'm putting someone through. It feels like it's my fault. Like they're doing this because this was my idea. This movie was my idea. They're in this very uncomfortable position or whatever it might be because of me. So it feels like I have a huge responsibility to make sure that they're okay. And I was like, if you're not okay with anything, anything can go. We'll cut anything out of this movie if you want to. And she's just an amazing. I mean, she won a lot of awards for the short. I was really hoping, she's such a talent and so natural. I just want her to like shoot off. Like, I'm like, someone put her in a huge movie and then her career will just snowball because she's just so good.
Yeah, I think you hit like a really good point there as well with like one of the takeaways I got from watching the movie the one time I watched it, where it was, I don't know, came across where the dialogue feels really natural and not forced, but like just impactful are the scenes where there's nothing, there's no words, it's just silence, and that's like an art in itself. That's a discipline almost, I guess, for a filmmaker, and then for somebody to be able to convey that as well and make it impactful without words. Like that's just, I think everybody deserves props on that one, yourself as well, and Eric and Najara. And then on the other side, because while Najara, obviously she's the headline act as Claire, but Bria Grant, who you mentioned there, was the brilliant kind of balance into that, where she's got the relatively normal life sort of thing, and she's got everything that Claire wants. Well, you said that you came across Bria through a project with Eric, was it?
Yeah.
Eric
But I do want to be a nerd and comment on the silence stuff.
Yeah.
There's this is the nerdiest thing ever, but I love this channel that's on YouTube, but I don't know if he's making new videos, and Vimeo, called Every Frame of Painting. Is incredible. Watch them all. They'll just like, they're so inspiring. But he'll pick out specific filmmakers. So sorry. Specific filmmakers to just like dissect their work. He has one on Fincher that I love, that's about the detail and his cinematography style. And then there's one on Scorsese talking about the power of silence in movies. And it shows the difference of how blockbuster movies are afraid to do that. Like they literally won't let a moment settle. Like something emotional happens and then jump, you're like to the next scene. Like there's no like time to let anything settle. And just like you said, like they described it like that, it takes bravery to let a moment be quiet, because it's way easier just to fill an audience with like tons of stuff happening. Like, and it's scary to have a moment where it's just crazy quiet, but it's like, I'm going to follow all these greats and not worry about that kind of stuff. But Bria, she's freaking incredible. I met her on, the other project Eric Stolz and her and I have. And I just knew once we connected through that project that I'd want to continue to work with her. She's so smart. You know, she's also killing it behind the camera right now. She's got 2 features out. One that she wrote and stars in, Lucky. One that she wrote and directed, 12 Hour Shift. She's directing the Pandora series for CW right now. Like she's written for that Netflix show, East Siders. Like she's so incredibly talented. But whenever I thought about the character Olivia in the movie, who is like the anti-Claire, like Bria always stuck in my mind as like, she almost is this person, someone who's like just super energetic and can like becomes your friend like right away when you talk to her. But while she's super friendly and full of all this positive vibes, like she's also not someone you can walk over or you know, she's not, I feel like people assume those are the same thing. Like if you're a nice, sweet person, then like people can just walk all over you, and that's not the case at all. But she just always exuded everything about Olivia. I'm like, I know that she would nail Olivia. I never knew exactly what it would look like to see Najara and Bria together until like we didn't do any read through or anything. Oh my God, I'm insane. But I didn't see anything till we were shooting like a very important scene in the movie. The first scene of when we had them together on set, the scene on a parking deck. And it's like just conversation, but it's like kind of like an emotional climax of the movie. on the first take, I was like freaking chills. I was like, this is perfect. They're like, their chemistry is perfect. It's because Najar or Claire is such an introverted, socially anxious, and then naturally awkward person, and then Olivia being this just like outgoing person. It was just like the perfect opposites. But it's funny, in real life, they're both very fun. Bria would bring this up in interviews. She's like, Najar is fun, I swear. She's not like that in real life. She's like, I'm a lot like Olivia, but Najar is way more fun than Claire, I swear.
Yourself as well, you got to have a little cameo role in the movie as well. How fun was that to do?
It was a lot of fun. And I feel like I got a whole nother level of respect for the actors, which makes sense in hindsight. But for a while, I actually, without spoiling things, I like thought about, am I going to do this or not? Like, I have to decide, and then I can't change my mind because it involved building certain things and matching things. So I was like, I kept the tendency to I'm very camera shy, and like I say I want to do something, and then I get it there, I'm like, I'm not doing this. Like, it's a hard, like, shut down, not interested. And so I was like, Jill, having these talks with myself, you have to decide, and then you can't change your mind. Like, we'll be there with like a whole 30-some crew, and you can't change your mind like that day. So I just like got myself into the right mind frame. And I think it helped because I had been talking to Najar about it for so long, and I didn't want to like ruin my own movie, because I don't think I'm a great actor by any means. I'm not trying to become an actor. I just wanted to do it because it'd be fun. And like, we went to that location, Najar, me and Robert, and walked through the whole thing. She even helped me with some direction. And I was like, okay, I get this. And it's like, since we did it all together before, like a couple of days before we shot, I was just feeling better. And I had my friend, who's also our editor, John Pata. He edited the short as well. He's a writer director himself. I had him direct that scene essentially, so that someone was behind the camera just focusing on that to tell me, because I didn't want to go look at the camera, like watch it. It's like, don't let me see it. I'm going to then like worry about the wrong things. Like, I look stupid there. I have a double chin in that moment or something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I just didn't let myself do that. That would make the day take twice as long. And it was very exciting and very emotionally exhausting. And I wasn't even doing anything like, I mean, it was a lot, but it wasn't like I'm crying because my friend died and some like dramatic emotional thing. But actually, when I got home that morning, because it was an overnight, like 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. shoot, I just like broke into tears. I was like, that is a lot to do. Like, holy shit. And we all think like everything we're doing behind the scenes is stressful. I feel like that is way more stressful, because everyone, like, we get the camera ready, the lights ready, everything's ready. And then you're like, okay, now you go do your thing. Like, be perfect this one time so we can all move on and set up the next lights. Because it's a lot of pressure. And like, that's why I'm just like, how do the actors do this? How do they also stay in that mental play, in the right headspace with this, this circus around you of like everyone moving equipment, and it's just insane. That's why when there were emotional scenes, I do like to remind the crew, like, we need to be quiet and chill right now. Like, we're not gonna be laughing and then expect to say action and then Najar needs to be crying. Like, that doesn't help her. We need to all be quiet and help the scene in any way we can. But man, it was awesome. If I could spoil what happens, it was so exciting. Can't wait for everyone to see what happens in the movie.
Yeah, it's very much it's an attention grabbing moment, I guess is one thing we could say. It's a noticeable cameo. It was fun. It was fun to see. Is there any, I don't know, would you have any, I don't know, one or any maybe loose plans to kind of develop any of your previous shorts as feature films, whether it's One Last Meal or Call Girl or anything? Is there any, I don't know, desire to do that, or are you happy with those as they are as short features, as short films?
Most of them are just short films to me. I think Call Girl is something that could be expanded, and Eric Havens has written a couple different scripts and versions of what that could be. He brought that up recently in some interviews. Or like, anyone out there want to give us money? We got another movie. But it was really interesting because it didn't go back into like, I don't know if this is too much to say. It didn't go back into like Tristan Riff's character and she's the call girl. It wasn't really about her. It was a cool idea of like the demon that's possessing her, like hopping from person to person in the future.
Okay.
So that was pretty freaking cool, I thought. But big. That's why I was like, we can't make that first. We need something small budget. Same thing with Stylist. Stylist wasn't written to be this budget either, which is why we were trying to get money from big companies. But in the meantime, we're trying to write other stuff that was even smaller in scale. And so that's why I don't know how we accomplished this movie, but like when I said about my wardrobe, Holly, costume designer, saying that we had 23 outfits just for Claire, like that alone is like, oh, that's a lot of money. So like now I understand why people told us we can't make this for like $100,000 or less. But yeah, a lot of them I don't see like 42 counts and One Last Meal. I really just see as like they are what they are. There's been some shorts that have done really well that people have expanded just because the short did so well. You can tell like this was never meant to be a feature. It was just like forced. Like I'm not going to bring any examples up. No. But I don't have any features written out of any of the other ones personally.
Okay. And the project you talked about with Bria that you've been kind of attached to, am I right in thinking that was Permanent Address from previously? Yeah, I remember you talked about it the time I thought it was in February, but was really in August. It kind of came up then. What's the status on that? Is there any update, or is it just something that's there that you're attached to, but we'll see what happens?
It has been optioned by a company, but I think I know that company right now is just where like we just really can't shoot anything right now. So I don't know how hard they're trying to find the financing. But I'm also attached to a new script called, I wonder if I'm supposed to say the name. Maybe I'm not supposed to say the name, but a new script written by Matt Black and Lawrence Vanicelli. Hope I'm saying his name right. That duo wrote Porno, which is a horror comedy that came out last year from Fangoria. It's very different than Porno, which I did enjoy a lot, but it's not comedy at all. It's like a straightforward supernatural horror, dealing with a lot of themes that are like very powerful to me. In fact, when I first read it, I was like, I have no idea how two men wrote this movie, or how you even understand that this perspective. I was like, this is freaking, I've been here. It deals with a lot of things I think a lot of women have experienced with men when you say you're not interested in them, and then how they react to that. It just, I feel like is very dealing with a lot of stuff going on right now, and also a really gnarly, nasty horror movie that I would love to make. I read it over a year ago first, and then this summer we started getting serious about like revising it and getting it ready to show people. So we're starting to show that to people now. I'd love to make that one, and that's kind of we feel like it's something we could make sooner because it's not 1 million people or 1 million location. It's more COVID friendly, whatever the hell that means. Which is funny because COVID friendly movies are kind of like the traditional low budget horror movie, which is like a few people, 1 or 2 locations. I mean, that's why we have so many horror movies with those kind of rules, because that's budget friendly.
Yep.
But people are trying to figure out ways to make movies right now that, you can have a smaller crew, smaller cast, but that part sucks, man. Yeah. We need this to get better so we can make movies with however many people we need.
Yeah, well, and I guess some people as well are doing like the video, the Zoom call movies. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen Host, that's on Shudder, which is like awesome, absolutely brilliant, and that kind
Host is great.
Yeah, and that came about at the beginning of the pandemic.
There's probably only one that can do that, because like how many people are going to try to do that now?
Yeah.
Host was great. Like they jumped on that opportunity and nailed it. Like that's an awesome idea.
Yeah, I agree with that. They can only be like almost like a Highlander. They can be only one sort of thing.
Like, what's funny is like to me, it's still like Blair Witch is the king of the freaking found footage. No one has come close. Probably people will say Paranormal Activity has, but I don't know that I would agree. Only because I don't think Paranormal Activity is a bad film, but Blair Witch is so genuine feeling. I still watch it now. I'm like, how in the hell did they do this? Like, not only the main three actors who are like flawlessly real, like, and I don't even know that any of them have like intense acting background. It just feels like so genuine. I've never seen, I don't like that acting is like what some of the best acting that's ever happened. Like, I don't feel like people realize that. And then all the people they interview, like that movie feels 100% real.
Yeah, I remember when they came out. I was getting toward, because I'm old. I was getting towards the end of high school, and like the internet had just become a thing. And it's like, oh, there's this buzz around this movie coming out, and like the Blair Witch website, whatever it was launched. And you look at it, it's like, holy shit, these people have gone missing, and there's a real. It was real because we were all. I don't know, because it was the first, and we're all a bit naive, and it was.
That's what's so incredible, right? Is that they had that whole campaign, even like the forethought to think like, we're gonna put this website up so people will like search it and think like, oh, it's even more real.
Yeah.
I heard they even had the actors like, you know, kind of like hide out for a while, like not do interviews and stuff. I'm like, do you really think they killed these people? I don't think I never thought it was actually real, but like. Still that every other found footage still has that like filter of acting happening. You can still feel that it's a movie. Yeah. Like Blair Witch is incredible. I don't understand how they did that.
It is. You get all the imitators that come.
Like even just to me, there's a lot of horror movies that I think are scary before the like horror comes in. Because to me, it's just like the three characters, they get lost. Which it is kind of horror because they get to the same place. They're kind of like stuck in a loop, and they all start to lose their minds and like, you know, like they were like a unit and they all like kind of separate and turn on each other. Like that's the scariest part of that movie before like the really scary sounds and kids at night laughing. Same thing with Descent to me, like them just getting trapped in there before even the monsters come out. Like it's scary as shit.
Yeah, it's like just people turning on people. It's I guess. The Walking Dead is a little bit similar where when The Walking Dead was really good and on fire, like the scariest element was like humans turning on humans, humanity going to shit and people being their own enemies. And it's like, because
all you have in a moment like that is like to remain like unified. Like that is like the only sense of comfort you have. So when that's gone, it's like, to me, it's scary as hell. I'm getting scared right now. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it.
It's like I won't be going in any caves. I won't be going in any woods. That's the way I do things. Like as a kid that's still tormented from Jaws.
I don't go in woods still though.
No, none of this stuff. I don't go in water because of Jaws. I'm very like that's it. After the Stylist, it's the next time you see me, I've got this big long hair because I ain't going anywhere near anything like that. It's the impact of these movies, and then you get the. I think I agree with you that Paranormal Activity isn't as good as Blair Witch, but it is really good, and I think it stands out because there was so many imitators and knockoffs of Blair Witch that came around for the next 10 years, 8 years, 9 years that were largely not great. And so when you get this one's actually quite good, all of a sudden it's like this is the next Blair Witch, which is Paranormal Activity. I guess like with the shark subgenre after Jaws, there was all the knockoffs that came out where some films in like Japan would use stock footage from Jaws in their own movies. It's like I don't think you can quite do that. That's not legal. So
I did not know that. That's amazing.
Big shark movie nerd. So it's in there. There's not much knowledge in there, but that's in there. That all these movies that copied it and just outright ripped it off. And I guess the same with the Blair Witch. And even then, after Paranormal Activity, you get the next surge of knockoff found footage movies that kind of play off Paranormal Activity. So that means we're totally going to get lots of Stylist knockoffs, you realize, in the next couple of years.
That would be very flattering. Can't wait.
What is next?
The hairstylist will be coming out from someone else next.
Oh,
there's kind of those like, there's those companies that do jump on that kind of stuff. Like they put out, I try to make the title as close as possible so that maybe you'll accidentally watch it. I think in the actual movie.
It'll be like, instead of Transformers, it'll be like Trans Robots with a similar DVD cover. It's like, oh, that's a new movie. Let's get this. And it's like, no, this is awful. It's horrendous.
Or there's like, I feel like a million exorcisms of whoever.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track of which ones are good because it's like The Exorcism of Emily Rose. I know that one's quite good, and then I'll be flicking through TV thinking The Exorcism of is this one a good one or is this one a bad one? I'm not sure. But like, what's on your plate? Well, next then, Jill. What can we expect to see from you in the future?
Well,
that's deep and meaningful questions there.
Yeah, I'm hoping to make that film with Matt and Lawrence. That would be awesome to jump. The producers on that are really inspired to get that done soon, but I know that's what we want to do with everything. I'm also excited to finally feel like I have room in my brain creatively to think about a different story. It's also very hard for me to concentrate on multiple projects at once. I don't know how people like write one script for 5 hours and then like totally switch and do something else, like another story. I think it takes me so long to get deep enough into where I need to be that then to go switch to something else is like, my brain is insane. So like I've had a script idea for freaking 4 years that I'm still obsessed with. So I know that means I need to get the script ready. I think that's the next thing I will like be as obsessed with as I am with the stylist. But I worry about how long it takes. Like I've got multiple I will like re-outline something 1,000 times. I've got I'll even like write in script form, but it's mostly an outline. It's not very detailed. I have like a 50-page script that's more like an outline. And just realize it just it's very hard for me to focus on writing. It's like, I don't know how people find the time or energy. It's so hard for me. But I also know like I have to do a certain amount of work to it for me to be happy with it before I could get help. Because if I bring help in too early, they change it too much. It's like I have a very specific vision for most of it, and I'm like, I know I need to get that out and then bring in someone to help me finish it. I wonder how much I'm supposed to talk about new ideas, honestly. But it is something that is shockingly inspired by Texas Chain Saw Massacre.
You do love your saw. Yeah, the family is saw.
But it's totally different than how like Stylist is inspired by Chainsaw. There's actually the idea of like the main character, Sally, Marilyn Burns' character. I love the middle of nowhere films too. Like I love Hills Have Eyes and Wrong Turn, more newer times of those kind of movies. But I was like, I don't want to make another one of those like where there's a group of people driving and then they run into weirdos in a house in the middle of nowhere. It's like that's the setup, which I love, but I don't want to. I was like, I'm not going to do another one of those. So I was like, how could I do one in that world, but it not be that? And I was like, what if I pick up one of those kind of movies at the end of the movie? And that's the beginning of my movie. So we see like the person escape, their trek through the middle of nowhere, what happens to them from there? Do they find help? So on. So that's kind of the idea. And I'm really obsessed with it. Like it would open at like the most intense climax of your typical horror movie and actually kind of really see what that's like and more of the trauma, because I'm more interested in the emotional side of all of this versus like just your straightforward horror. And so it's like it'd be really interesting to explore, see someone literally right after that, what they're going through, trying to find help. Like not like Sally gets in that truck right away, but what if you were in the middle of the woods and like had to trek through the woods and try to find someone? So it almost would be like, to me, like a horror adventure. Like there's so many things I'm going to mix into this movie.
An adventure movie. I like that.
But I'm really excited because I love that stuff. I also love being in the middle of nowhere, love the woods, which is funny. Like I love to put myself in horror movie situations. Like you said, you do not.
Yes.
In fact, I was just driving through the South last week on my way to Tennessee, got a cabin in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky for the night just to break up my drive. And it's the scariest location. But like scary is a compliment for me. Like it was down this which I knew it was on the land of someone else, the person we were renting the cabin from. But man, just to get down to the cabin was like behind this like a water tower. The closest town's probably 30 minutes away. And we're just in the middle of nowhere. It's like straight up like an Evil Dead cabin.
No.
And it was freaking awesome. But yeah, when I'm out there, I'm like, this is scary. We're like, it had like a nice porch. So at night we're sitting out there, but past like we had some lights on the porch, but past that it's just like pitch black. And it's like, it's so amazing. Like you have no idea what's out there. And that's only like 10 feet away. And it's like pitch black.
No. It sounds lovely, but it sounds terrifying. So like, I think I'd give that kind of a polite
go
pass.
Back to that cabin to film that movie. I don't know.
maybe there's something there for you. I am keeping an eye on the clock, so I'm aware that you've given us loads of time. So I'll quickly wrap this up with a couple of light questions. I guess firstly, if you yourself could tackle like an existing IP, what franchise do you think that, I don't know, what would you like to tackle? I know obviously you've got a love for Texas Chain Saw Massacre, Friday the 13th. I think last time you brought up Scream. What would be your kind of ideal if they went, right, which one do you want?
This is so hard. What's funny is Eric Stoltz gave me a couple great answers for this question, but they're movies that I don't know well. He was just like, they're two like very rare, weird movies. He's like, these could both use great remakes and you should do them. But it's hard for me to say because like in one way it sounds like, would it be a dream to like do a chainsaw movie, or would I just feel like, oh God, I'm just gonna be another person that fucks up the chainsaw franchise?
That's that fine line. That's the kind of risk and reward element, I guess.
Or maybe I'll do it right because I know the right shit. Okay, my least favorite is that Leatherface prequel. Not the beginning, but the one that they call Leather, the most recent one.
Yeah,
Leather. That upset me to my core because I'm like, this is definitely not where Leatherface came from. Like, they just gave him a Michael Myers story. They put him in a mental hospital. I am so dumbfounded by that. I'm like, he's always been in the country with his family. He's never been anywhere else. He was never in a mental hospital. Give me a fucking break. Okay, I'm very passionate about that. That is not right. Also, there was like those two main kids, like the two male main characters. One of them you assume is Leatherface. The other one's like Pretty Boy. Pretty Boy ends up being Leatherface. I'm like, what's going on in this? Leatherface never, no. He never looked like that. He was never in a mental hospital.
You got to the Pretty Boy stuff where you have Matthew McConaughey. That's as Pretty Boy as this whole family gets. That's it. Leave it alone.
But I feel like, I don't know if I'd want to make Chainsaw. I have joked that when Larry Drake, who played Dr. Giggles, passed away in recent years, I bought it and watched it again because I hadn't seen it since I was like 10 years old. And I remember it's so fucking fun. Like, why was a sequel never made to this? I feel like you could make a Dr. Giggle sequel and that'd be a lot of fun.
I like that. That's a good answer. I like a final question. As we're recording this, we're kind of in the week before Halloween weekend. What is Jill watching for Halloween weekend? What are your kind of recommendations? What are you planning to watch?
Oh, man.
Yeah, again, no pressure. No pressure there.
Well, I've been watching movies all month. Trying to, in fact, made a rule of like trying to watch stuff I have on like hard copy versus streaming just for fun. And so kind of just going through all the classics again, like movies I've seen 1,000 times. Last night I watched Texas Chain Saw Massacre. God damn it, I sound crazy.
There's a theme here. There's a theme.
But some of my favorite like Halloween-y horror movies are like, I mean, the obvious Trick or Treat is awesome. Then I like some of the more innocent, like kiddie ones, like Hocus Pocus. I love to watch this week. Or what the hell else was I wanting to watch that was like that? I freaking love Hocus Pocus. I got to figure out if I have a copy of it. What else needs to be watched this week? I mean, you got to watch Halloween.
Yeah, that's kind of I've got rolled up in the 31 days of Halloween thing that everybody's been, well, some people have been doing on social media, and well, as of this recording, it's on day 27, so I've been doing one a day, and I've held off on Halloween. That's like that'll be October 31st, and I'm going to try and get through as many of the franchises as I can on the Saturday. It
is a great franchise. I've watched multiple of them.
Oh, too right.
This month. 4 and 5.
Oh, 4's so good. 4's so good. Such a.
I joke about. I call Halloween. What the hell's his name? Oh my God. I'm trying. Is it Halloween Resurrection or Halloween with Paul Rudd? Paul Rudd's Halloween.
The Curse of Michael Myers.
That movie.
Yeah, Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Oh, that's the one with Paul Rudd. Is Tommy Wallace. There we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was kind of where it went a little bit off the path. 5 went off the path.
That one's fun though.
It is. It's just it kind of goes nowhere at the end when they just, we're just going to ignore this, and then we're going to go to H20, which was good. But then they go from H20 to Resurrection, and you get Busta Rhymes doing kung fu shit, and it's like, you were doing so well with H20.
Great.
1 and 2 are great. 3's great. 4's good. 5, 6. And I'll even take Rob Zombie's first movie. That was.
I actually do really like that one, which I know is like.
It was
I'm getting killed by all the horror purists.
They're coming for you. But it was good in terms of not just rehashing and like the Psycho remake where it was just shot for shot the same movie. Yeah. At least he tried something very Rob Zombie with it. People
are mad no matter what. It's like you either made it too much the same or you changed it too much. Like then what do you guys want people to do? Really, they don't want remakes, but that's what I enjoy about, and I know this bothers the Halloween fans, but like I like the first half of his where he tells this kid story, because to me that's the only part that's unique. The second half of the movie does just rehash the old movie. Like once they're teenagers, it really is the old movie, just with like just more gruesome. And you can tell he felt torn. It's like, I'm going to do the remake like exact, and then I'm going to add my part here. But I also, coming from a freaking fan of the chainsaw world, clearly Rob Zombie likes all the redneck crap too, which he totally put into, which I know that's like, I think what it upsets people. It's like, he rednecked up the Halloween story, and I'm like, well, what do you expect him to do?
Yeah, it's like that is I guess out of like every filmmaker in horror, he's like got the most, I don't know, he's got one of the most distinct styles in modern horror. Like that is his thing. That is what he's going to do to whatever movie he gets.
I mean, like House of a Thousand Corpses and Rejects, like that is obviously a Texas Chainsaw. Like it basically be considered a remake to me. It just doesn't have the same title. It's the same exact thing, like a weird family in the middle of Texas. It's the same exact thing.
Yeah, all live in a house. Some random strangers end up stumbling across their house and get like brutally, bloodily murdered and tormented. It's like, tick, tick, tick. That's a lot of that.
He just takes it to the more exploitation, more offensive route with everything.
Yeah, there's a. Well, did you get a chance to see 3 from Hell when that came out? What? Yeah. I guess that might be 2 years ago. How did you find that?
I did not love it.
Okay. Well, we'll leave that there.
I do really like the other 2 with those characters, Rejects and Corpses.
Yeah. I think that those first 2, I think Devil's Rejects is probably just edges it, but the first 2 are both really awesome films. Third one, it's okay. It's all right. It was all right. It was good to see the family again. That's my thing. It's like, we get to see the Firefly family. That's all right. Okay. So it was. If they were going to do a third film, which maybe didn't need to do, it was an okay way to do it, I guess, which is me being very diplomatic. Jill, what can you tell us about, as we wrap this up, what is the status of things now with the Stylist, and where can people keep an eye on for future screenings and possibly that general release that everyone's hoping for?
Yes, we are still playing film festivals right now. We have... actually this week I'm gonna head to Chicago for a drive-in screening, so that's a cool way to experience something together. But we'll play again in the UK. We're part of the Leeds International Film Festival, which is next month. And right now, really just keep in touch, like keep following us on all the social media. We're at The Stylist Film, and we're hoping to have our distribution news sorted soon. But yeah. Awesome. I don't know yet.
Well, I wholeheartedly recommend everybody check out the movie as and when you can, whether it's a festival screening, a virtual festival screening, or whether it is on down the line on a digital release or hopefully a DVD Blu-ray release. Whenever you get the chance to see it, definitely see it. Well worth the time. And congratulations on an awesome film, Jill.
Thank you.
Yeah. Everyone in the office that's seen it has absolutely loved it. Even the people that don't necessarily like horror have really liked it because of the style of it and the narrative. So yeah, big props to you and all your cast and crew. It's a grand job.
Thank you to the whole Starburst gang. You guys have been supportive of my career this whole time. It's been a lot of help. I mean, since Call Girl, you guys have been there for me.
Oh, we're happy to do what we can. It's only because the stuff's good that we get on board of it. Yeah, enough of this loving. So it was at the Stylist Film on across social media. Is it that people can keep up to date with?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. And be sure to keep up to date with us at Starburst_mag on Twitter, starburstmagazine.com. Like this video, subscribe, comment, say how great it was, say how awful a job I did, whatever you want to say. Follow me at Cultured Left Peg on Twitter. Thank you again, Jill, for giving us so much time, and we will see you all soon.
Thank you.